Mason, I can't thank you enough for being on the CEO Global Network podcast today. It's just great of you to take the time to be with us. So thanks a lot for doing that, Mason.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I just want, before we get started with the questions, because I got some questions for you, but just before we start with those, I just want to let everybody know who's listening and watching this that you are the president and corporate tax manager of Collective Accounting Co. You are the former income tax advisor at Reed Financial Strategies. And I remember when we talked about that. I remember when we talked about you starting up the company a number of years ago now. You've got a Bachelor of Business Administration from Laurentian University and an accounting diploma from Mohawk College.
That's right.
And you have a reputation, okay, for your commitment to excellence. You have the knowledge, experience to navigate complex financial landscapes, providing your clients with, really smart, tailored tax planning solutions, which a number of people, a number of executives, CEOs, executives wrestle with. So again, welcome. And let me roll right into the first question, okay?
Sounds good.
So how did your experience as an income tax advisor shape your vision for collective accounting?
So the main thing that I would see when I started in my role at Reed Financial Strategies is we get clients that were generally receiving poor guidance from prior firms, accountants. Very transactional, annual support, which is very low value. So basically go at the end of the year is 6 months ago, file a return, very little value. You can't really react, really, right? So my goal was to create an end-to-end annual servicing where we actually tailored solutions to the client and their needs. And it just didn't appear to be happening. There were a couple of companies that motivated me to do this that were doing it already, but they weren't local. So I wanted to kind of create that situation for my clients. And that's what we're doing now. We're basically results driven. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. What's the most surprising lesson you've learned leading your own accounting firm? What a couple lessons learned from doing that?
Man. I'd say I have two big ones. So the main one is that it's very hard to let go of work in this industry because it's very hard for me to put what's in my brain in other people's. So letting go, very challenging. As you hire, you have to get comfortable with that. It might not be exactly how you would do it, and that's fine. And the other area that was a surprise is it is very challenging to manage, in most cases, several dozen, but in some cases, hundreds of ongoing projects at the same time, which is exactly what tax season is. What a challenge that is. My strategy for that is having a massive whiteboard. I'm obsessed with whiteboards, with a Kanban style, like moving the files across, all visual for me. But that was a big challenge, learning how to manage the workflow for sure.
It would be a big challenge. It's a big challenge for everybody, that stage of building a business.
Yeah.
So how do you simplify complex financial decisions for your clients without losing accuracy, which is so important, right?
Yeah, so I think the easiest way for me, I grew up in an office, but I was basically mentored in an office where we were obsessed with one-pagers, single page documents that could walk a client through a situation. So to do that, we always create models. Generally speaking, they would be forecasting models, whether it's a tax return or corporate tax return, whatever. And we would walk them through every step and potentially a number of scenarios. We try to usually 2 to 3 and always test the work you did. I did this yesterday with one of my team members. Tested one of my models for a client 3 different ways to ensure that I got to the same result. So I could sit down with that client with a one-pager and walk them through it and be comfortable with it. So that's the one-pager is always king. We do it all the time. Yeah.
Well, that was great lesson learned, Dave, from your experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Valuable. Yeah, valuable. I know how thick the tax laws are in this country, and I know it's not just one book anymore. And so, what strategies do you use, Mason, to stay ahead of the ever-changing tax laws and regulations in this country?
Yeah, you got to read a lot. And as a result, you have to read the right things. For me, it's subscribing to certain experts in the field, knowledge experts in tax and reading everything that they come up with. I do a lot of continuing education, including webinars, just to ensure that you have, if there's changes to tax laws, you have the updates. And it's effectively just constantly reading and taking courses because I love to learn. So I'm always excited and giddy to kind of sign up for courses. It's good money spent for me. In addition to that, I brought on Laura at the beginning of the year. So she's She's our CPA here that she'll be the tax manager eventually, to be honest, for corporate tax. And it's nice because she brings a different type of knowledge. She actually came not from the tax world as well. So that's new knowledge that we hired, and she has to do CEUs. So she's always doing courses as well. The very last one would be just talking to industry experts in person. So again, my mentor, he's a CFA. We talk a lot. We already talked this morning, and we keep each other up to date in all the news as well.
Yeah, so you've got a brain trust around you that can help you do that.
You have to do that. Yeah.
You tap into. Yeah, good for you for doing that. Absolutely. Yeah. Now, how do you approach building trust and long-term relationships with business owners? And I say business owners because, from what I understand, a lot of your clients are business owners, right?
Our service has been sort of pivoted to just mostly business owners now.
Mostly?
Most, yeah, 80%. So for me, it's two things. And we build trust really fast with our clients. My meetings are all sort of similar. Two things I do. So I do have an immense passion for what I do, and that helps a lot. And they see the energy in that. And so many people, either prospects or people that have already signed up with us, will always point to the passion side, even in our reviews on Google, all of it. So I have a strong passion for providing service and being results driven. But in addition to that, it's having just an actual authentic interest in my clients, which is easy to build when you have an end-to-end annual service versus seeing them once a year. So you're always talking, you're always interested in what they're doing, and you're always generally trying to find common ground if they're a prospect and build upon that. So my meetings never start with business. They always start with discussing common interests, their family, things that are going on, and maybe how the business is doing before we get into the hard facts and numbers. And it's just we have a really, really high retention rate. And I do think it has a lot to do with that.
But it would have a great deal to do with that. I mean, the passion that you mentioned and the authenticity, right? Like, people who watch this podcast, well, you're a real guy, right? You're an authentic person. It comes across, right? And your clients would really appreciate that. No question about it. Right? So, Mason, I got one last question for you before we wrap up, okay?
Sounds good.
And amazing how fast the time flies, when we're having fun. But the last question is, what advice would you give entrepreneurs about balancing financial strategy with business growth?
Comes down to budgeting, forecasting, like we just spoke about, right? So it's amazing how many people come to me and they don't have a budget and they don't have a plan and the numbers are just floating in thin air, or they don't even have an accounting system. So a lot of professionals go into business from a non-accounting based industry or non-financial industry. We'll talk about, trades businesses, right? And they're very, very good on the tools. And the very last part of their business that they attend to is the accounting and financial side. So you gotta just spend some time on a Monday morning, book that morning off and look at your budget, look at what's coming in for the week, look at what happened last week. Are you on pace? And then also reflect on the last month and how that went, and try to project the current month. And that, I personally project the current month and then follow weekly to make sure that we're on target. Because if you don't have a target or you don't have a map for the month for your budget, you don't know where you're going. And you might not react. Like, you could be a very profitable business, but you have very high AR that you're not pulling in and you're not even aware of it. And like you said, people go overdrawn, they're not even aware of it. If you were focusing for an hour on AR, which results in also some customer relations management, that's better use of your time than being on the tools every day, all month. So you got to spend some time looking at the budget every week, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. It's great advice for entrepreneurs, great advice for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So, Mason, I can't thank you enough for being on the CEO Global Network podcast. I know you're a very busy person, right? You got a lot of stuff going on, but we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I really enjoyed our conversation, and it'd be great if we could do this again one day.
Likewise. Thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate that you brought me on here.
Yeah, no, that's great, Mason. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.